Hey guys, Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films back again with Doctor Who Classic. Last time around, we started up the Mutants. What was that one about?
Well, if I recall correctly, the Doctor and Jo are essentially once again sent by the Time Lords. They land on some kind of space station. I think they call it a sky base or something, although we never actually see it, if I recall. But it turns out that it's an Earth colonizing group who are trying to... I don't know, it got kind of complicated, but I think the idea is they're trying to terraform the planet below, even though that means it's going to wipe out a group of the indigenous people there. And there's some kind of administrator who came to tell both the people of the planet and the sky base that this wasn't going to happen, that they were going to give the people their freedom. But he's then assassinated, and it just all goes to hell from there. And ultimately, Jo and the Doctor end up down on the planet. They meet some of the indigenous people, and even, I think we're right at the end, supposed to see the actual mutants who may or may not be a different version of the indigenous people. It was kind of murky there at the end.
A bit, yeah. So, the whole purpose in being sent here was the Doctor had to deliver something to one of them.
That's right.
Yeah, one of the indigenous people named Kai. And he did, and it opened, and there was these sort of ancient tablets with ancient writing that nobody could read, so it wasn't of much help. But they also said there was some other person, like someone from Earth, who kind of knew the language, so if they could find him, maybe it could
And
work.
we've seen one little glimpse of him kind of like in a biohazard suit or something like that.
Something. So, but yeah, the whole point is that they're trying to change the atmosphere of this planet because it's not breathable to humans. It's perfectly fine for the indigenous people, but not for humans. So they're trying to change that. Yeah, I guess that was pretty much it.
And last thing, if I recall, the Jo and Kai, or at least Jo, had gone into the caves and got chased by what she thought were monsters, but we again think are other versions of the indigenous people. I can't remember if the Doctor and the others caught up with her or not.
Yes, they all caught up in the caves, and then the guy, I forgot what his name is, but the head guy was gonna blow the caves and kill them.
Right. Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's the Doctor, Jo, Kai, and then
the two pirates,
the two soldiers, Cotton and Stubbs. That was it.
Stubbs.
Yeah, sounds very pirates naming. So,
Mr. Stubbs.
Yeah,
no, it was Gibbs, wasn't it? Mr. Gibbs.
Yeah, Mr. Gibbs. Well, I think the parrot's name was Cotton, so maybe that's what we're thinking of.
They're not really rules. They're more like guidelines.
Yeah.
Great line.
Yeah. And we enjoyed the last 3 parts, and we did joke that this is probably one of the least favorites in the fandom. It's apparently true. So, this is apparently one of the least favorites, at least of Pertwee stories, from what I've heard. However, I have talked to at least 1 or 2 people who said, yeah, it's the least popular, but I like it. So it's like, okay, half and half.
Yeah. I mean, it's not spectacular. It's no War Games.
Yeah.
But it's fun.
So, we do also still have our jar. So, and as I was editing the last episode, it seems like this isn't that annoying. So, however, the one moment a couple episodes back when I put the sonic screwdriver right up to the microphone, apparently that was slightly annoying. So, woke up a couple people's cats and everything. So,
well, that's a good description of us. Slightly annoying.
Exactly. So, let's go ahead and jump right into the next 3 episodes of The Mutants. Here we go.
Lead. What does lead mean to you, Jo?
Radiation?
Yes, exactly.
Well, definitely means Superman can't look in here. It's Boba Fett.
Welcome. Did you die? So I carried you as quickly as I could out of the radioactive zone to where I hoped your friends would find you.
Well, thank you.
interesting accent.
You were given up for dead years ago.
You think I've chosen to live here, to work with this primitive equipment? I was young, ambitious. I hope to make many great discoveries here.
I once had hair.
No.
My first was... At first, the changes were natural. But now Professor Yeager's experiments have accelerated the changes and something is seriously wrong.
Yes. Yes, indeed.
It's global warming.
I have approximate translations for many of the basic symbols. One might call this the Solonian Book of Genesis, the Lost Tablets. This doctor is how the story of how Solonian civilization began.
And the Time Lords had it how?
And ended if we don't get a move on, I think.
No.
Doctor.
Doesn't explain how he built this, if he was in exile.
No.
This particular
Yeah.
symbol here, for instance.
They keep cutting to a different camera when something falls down.
Yeah.
Yes, but that's it. That's what I said. That's radiation. That's cesium radiation.
So that's why they sent me here. Professor, I want you to take me to that place where you found Joe Grant.
The radiation cave, but I have only one suit. If you spend any time in there without one, Doctor, you will die. Any man would.
Any man, perhaps. Hurry, please.
It's always a shame when they say, "That's exactly it," and I'm just sitting here like, yes, go on.
Yes. You've never done that, have you? It's called chimneying,
Well,
where you literally push with pressure against each wall to climb up.
yeah.
I've actually done that once.
He got stuck only once, for a moment or two.
Now, didn't we establish way back with Hartnell that the Doctor can absorb some kinds of radiation without too much damage?
Kinda. He definitely can, I just don't know when they established that.
I thought it was like in the Daleks, the original Dalek serial.
I seem to remember he was having the worst trouble with it, but I don't know.
No. Again, that's obviously matte work. As you can see there, the glow around them.
Yeah, the lighting doesn't match up on them at all. Meanwhile, at the Ren Fair.
Come on, we've got to get to the hospital.
Well, at the very least, he is tanking it right now.
Earth Council investigator on board.
Investigator? What investigator?
The Master.
Believe me, the doctor will help you find a cure.
There is no cure for this.
Yes, of course.
A cure for this.
It's not a sickness.
No, it's a metamorphosis. Adaptive change. The mutants as we know them are an intermediate form.
And we've yet to see the final metamorphosis.
Exactly.
The bugs.
The radiation cave is the key to that. Skybase, Yeager's lab.
That's why I wanted to call it Skylab.
No. It's so nice that they're trying to analyze something. Oh, jeez. That's a lot of rockets. Poor guy got Katarina'd.
Trying to think what her name was.
Yeah. That was a pretty good effect, actually, of the wall coming out and you see the space. Yeah. Alrighty. That's part 4. So it's evolution.
Interesting idea.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if they're going to like that evolution, but...
Well, again, the thing is, it would be so hard to detect, especially for a species like us, because, as I said, it happens like over a 2,000-year period.
Yeah.
You know, so there's 500 years of normal and then 500 years of almost getting ready to change, then 500 years of, obviously the bug-like creatures, and then we have to wait to see what the next iteration is.
Yeah, so... I don't think this is going to happen, but there's an investigator coming from Earth that sounds familiar, Yeah. That sounds like it could be the Master. It'd be hilarious if he just shows up, realizes the Doctor is there, and then just leaves. It's just a small cameo.
But the thing here, now, again, I may be putting my foot in my mouth, but it doesn't seem that this would be something the Master would be interested in, because there's no weapon here, there's no Earth people to end up eliminating to get back at the Doctor. There's nothing. The planet means nothing.
Yeah, the only thing I could think is if maybe because it's terraforming stuff, if he's thinking that it's almost like Wrath of Khan, that he could use this as sort of a Genesis device to destroy Earth. But that's a bit of a stretch, so probably not. Probably not the Master.
What would be interesting is if he were coming here to save the Doctor, realizing that if the Doctor is gone, he won't be able to suffer through Earth's destruction. I mean, that's a very twisted kind of plan, but I mean,
I still find it strange that the Time Lords sent the Doctor at all. So I guess the whole thing is that he's supposed to save them from extinction, which is, well, I was gonna say is practically against the Prime Directive, but that really is more Star Trek. They're just here to sort of observe, The Time Lords observe, I guess, sort of like the Watcher observes in What If, which we've been watching recently. So to have the Doctor go in, it's like, well, I mean, I guess they're not naturally going extinct. It is, interference by another species. But for them to actually still interfere with that to let the Solonians continue is interesting.
And there may be, and again, it all comes back, I think, strangely enough, to the molybdenum, the thesium, that maybe there is some reason why the Time Lords need that saved.
Yeah.
Or at least kept out of the hands of the people from Earth.
Maybe. Yeah. Alrighty.
Now, I have to say that the pace on that episode seemed a bit sluggish, but again, they had a whole lot of things that they were trying to get accomplished there.
Yeah.
But again, it doesn't detract from the overall experience. It seemed to be clanking along there for a bit.
Yeah.
Depressurize and isolate.
I will say, as good as that is, if you shook the camera, that also would have probably added to that a bit.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's obviously not a set. They obviously filmed it in a cave somewhere.
Yep. Yeah. It detonated somewhere.
Cotton, treason. Stabs, treason. Tie, conspiracy. Sabotage. Terrorism. Miss Grant, such a pity. Miss Grant had nothing to do with
That's not a crime.
Todd.
Total failure. Every one of those rockets malfunctioned in one way or another. If they had been properly checked out, as I insisted, Marshal.
Jaeger, what happened?
I'll tell you what happened. None of
guy's
the
pissed.
ionization rocket. No one will be able to set foot on Solos for centuries now, once the crystals have taken effect. No one. Not you, and certainly not the investigator.
Jaeger, will you shut up?
As for this display of megalomania, how do you hope to conceal it from the investigator?
By killing you, dear.
Yeah.
The investigator still has to get here, and his ship is no match for Skybase.
Agreed. You could dispose of the investigator too. But how reliable
That's
are your rockets?
gonna be
Professor?
even more suspicious to the
Has to be
Earth,
a
though.
good warning system.
Goodbye.
Well, that worked.
I think it's interesting. The sign says, "Have you got your oxy mask?" And again, don't mean to be too correct, but shouldn't it be, "Do you have your oxy mask?"
Outbreaks of plague and rebellion must be controlled. Don't you agree?
Marshal, you are quite mad.
Only if I lose.
Well, I thank you, Mr. President.
No, of course not.
We were simply obeying orders. That's a common excuse, Professor.
I was only following orders as a good soldier should.
He's even got the accent for it.
Nope. There's that famous escapology.
I think I'll just take a rest here.
Right.
Good job, Joe. That was a low pocket.
The other thing.
And still sticking out.
No. This is the greatest moment Joe's ever had.
Marshall attempting to maintain complete control of entire planet. He must be replaced immediately. Over.
Message received, Skybase 1. Request identification. Additional information soonest. Hyperion out.
Good job, Joe.
Not Stubbsy.
Did you get through? Yes! Come on. Come on, Stubbsy.
Aw.
A flash of electromagnetic radiation. We all become unpeople, undoing unthings, untogether. Fascinating.
Well, thanks for the heads up.
Got it.
Shall we welcome the investigator together?
Oh, that's such a setup. You may be right.
It seems like it's too much of a stretch for that to happen.
Yeah.
Are you all right?
Oh, yes, I think so.
What's happening?
The investigators arrived.
And the Marshal?
Well, from what I could gather, he's taken the doctor to meet the investigator.
I mean, there has to be a reason there's one more episode.
Yeah.
Sergeant, refueling.
What is it?
The shuttle. What do you mean? They'll need to refuel Hyperion to investigate the shuttle. They should be putting a probe out any minute now. The live diesel will start flooding through there. We'll all be done for.
I got a bad feeling about this.
Nah, well, practically in a trash compactor, honestly. Okay. Now, they did mention that while the mutations are supposed to happen, they've gone wrong. So perhaps they're not supposed to be the giant bugs that they are. Maybe it's supposed to be a little different, but...
Wonder what Sidney Newman would have thought of them.
Yeah, I mean... I suppose they don't have bug eyes. The Sea Devils did, but no, they're just giant bugs.
So did I see somewhere that the Sea Devils are coming back in the current Doctor?
Yes, they are. That will be the next special that's coming out for Jodie Whittaker, which is hilarious because they had the sort of trailer for the next special on the last episode they did, and I didn't watch it, but I figured it out like 10 minutes later that the Sea Devils were coming back. So everyone was saying it was very timely when we put out our Sea Devils reaction. So yeah. Now, the fact that they didn't show the investigator in this episode, like, that's not the cliffhanger, so it can't... I don't know. It doesn't seem like it would be.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like it would be the Master. But you're right that is perfect setup for him to be the Master. So, I don't know.
Now, this is one of those things where it seems like the Marshal has everything covered, but if he were to discover that these people have been locked in the Athesium transfer unit, that has to be deliberate. There's no thing there, and that would be something to trip up the Marshal over.
Yeah.
I refuse to be treated like a
Criminal?
I am warning you, Doctor.
My apologies, Marshal.
Alright.
Who is this?
Doctor, as I'm sure you know.
You're
Well, we'll put in a
scientific
coin
advisor.
anyway.
You are a doctor, I take it?
I am, yes.
Qualified in...
Yes.
Practically everything.
Ah. This is it, then. Get inside.
Inside?
Fast as you can. Move. Come here, come here.
This is a ballsy plan.
I'm a scientist. And I rest my case. I regret that so far we have found no solution to the problem.
Thank you, Professor. That will be all.
The professor could rat him out, couldn't he?
Theoretically speaking.
Well, gentlemen,
If he doesn't care about the
prisoners.
prisoners.
The absence of your idea of duty was to keep this planet for yourself.
The mutants! Much! The diseased! To be wiped off the face of the planet!
Need I say more, investigator?
The defense rests.
And he would also have told you that we now realize what's made so many of these mutations to go wrong.
Wrong, but the doctor said it was a natural process. Why wrong?
You see, even Sondergaard admits it. The mutants are evil, must be destroyed.
That's not what you would come to anyway. That's... Oh my gosh, she's gonna try. Do they even know how to push buttons?
Release the Marshal's men. Obey his orders during this emergency.
The others follow me.
Well, that didn't work. This is gonna be a Silurians ending, and I'm all just gonna die.
Well, what do you want now?
An Earth-type atmosphere on Solus. Nothing more, nothing less.
Does he have any plans for after he fixes the atmosphere?
I'm afraid the radiation is at a dangerously high level at the moment, so you'd better hurry, Doctor.
Snap his neck.
You know, it's getting to the point that I wish we were watching The Punisher and not Doctor Who, because he'd be dead by now.
No, leave him.
Is he gonna become a bug?
Maybe he'll be a beautiful butterfly.
Marshal! Investigator!
No, he's reversing the polarity.
And confined to their quarters? What is this nonsense about my...
No, he lost his hat.
Not being allowed to leave Skybase?
You should be grateful to help me. We'll begin a new Earth, the center of a new empire.
It's all right, investigator. He's quite mad.
Oh, no, Doctor. I told you. Madman lose. I've won. Solus is mine.
We'll give it 5 minutes.
You finished your work?
Almost. My companions?
You'll be released as soon as the job is done.
But he really has lost it.
Whoa.
I hear you.
That's wonderful, wonderful.
Goodbye.
Hi!
Goodbye. Great, isn't it? He just flashes off and leaves us here.
Yeah, right?
Out, quickly.
Alright, he got the door at least. So basically, he went through a metamorphosis and became the 70s. Look at him.
You destroyed my dreams. I'll destroy you.
Die, Marshal. Let there be an end to your torture of my people.
Okay.
Hey, you don't see that every day.
I thank you, Doctor, for all my people.
You're welcome.
Goodbye.
Exactly. Cotton, you will assume acting command of this
Ooh.
base, pending its return to Earth.
Sir?
That's
take it
great.
you will be returning in Hyperion.
I mean, everyone else is dead, so...
You'd excuse us for the moment, investigator. My assistant is feeling rather faint.
Who, me? No, I'm fine now, honestly.
Yes,
I
I know.
didn't feel too
You
good
have
earlier,
been
but...
rather overdoing it, you know.
I
You,
have?
you don't look too well. We'll see you all later.
His exits are getting worse.
Doctor, who did you say?
Never gets old.
Perfect, huh?
Oh well, back to the broom cupboard.
Yes, well, at least we made a clean sweep of this place.
Ark, 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 ark.
Attention! Attention! Computer confirms malfunction in storage area 4. Investigate, please. Investigate, please.
Alrighty. Well, it got a little trippy, but this is still good.
Yeah. Again, that's a fascinating idea of the going through basically an evolutionary stage every 500 years to get to be the super powerful butterfly there. It then makes you wonder: are the Solonians, after they become like Kai, what are they going to do? Are they just going to stay on their planet? I mean, after all, they do seem now to be very, very powerful people.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not really sure. Like, what would you do next with all that power? I mean, maybe build an actual civilization, not just the sort of hut they had. So maybe that could be the next thing. Yeah. So I don't know if the Solonians ever come back or anything. So,
and again, it's one of those things where that last episode had a lot of twists and turns in it, and it's not that it was rushed. It's just that if they could have taken some of the clunkiness out of episode 4 and a little bit out of 5, they might have had a little bit more time to work on episode 6. I mean, I like the story. I do like, again, the idea of the evolution of the species is really cool. It seemed a bit rushed there at the end.
Yeah. Now that I'm thinking about it, I think I heard that people don't really like the ending of this one. Like, that's the main drag down for it. And I'm going to assume it's, the Technicolor Dreamcoat coming in and killing the Marshal, and that's it. Which, at first is like, oh yes, he's, evolved into this great enlightened new version of Kai. He walks in, just completely blasts the Marshal to nothing. Gone, reduced to atoms, But honestly, I mean, it doesn't... And I know we're the kings of things coming out of left field, but I don't think it came out of left field. Like, they set up, like, no, they're still going through this metamorphosis. We just need to see the right one. Yes, it works out in our favor that instead of being this, this bug dude, he turns into Jesus, but still, like, they do build up to that.
Yes, a vengeful Jesus at that.
Yeah. Jesus if he was in the Old Testament, I would say. So.
But now strangely enough, the only thing that I thought was wrong with that is that the Marshal didn't appear to suffer. I would have thought when Kai came in, he would say, it is time for us to bring this to an end, and now you are to suffer the way you have caused us to suffer, and then, literally just kind of ripped him apart instead of just blipping him out of existence.
Yeah, so I'll be very curious as to the comments on this one, because, there'll be episodes like The Space Pirates, where we were like, well, it's not bad per se, it's kind of a weaker one, definitely, and then it turns out, that just that of us being like, well, it's not so bad, is actually the more positive response to that episode. Whereas this one, it's like, no, it's a decent story, and it all, works out, and maybe it gets a little clunky towards the later episodes, but overall, it's a good story. But this one is apparently, according to the fandom, one of Pertwee's worst. So yeah, I'll be very curious about that.
That makes me wonder, though, is that reaction because Pertwee really doesn't have much to do? I mean, this is really... he's a minor... Well, not a minor, but he's not the major part of this story. The Time Lords sending the message to Kai finally giving it, or through the Doctor to Sondegard, and the Doctor finally figuring out what... So, yeah, I mean, he doesn't play a central role in it. This, if you had to say, who is this 6-episode arc about, it's really about the Marshal, and how everybody is trying to get back at him. So maybe that's the big complaint about it.
Maybe. But I was honestly fine with that, and we've watched, or in some cases listened to episodes, like, first thing that comes to mind is the Holy Terror, where pretty much throughout that entire thing, it's like, okay, well, this isn't really Doctor Who, it's the adventures of Frobisher the Penguin, and the Doctor's just sort of there until the end when he kind of does something.
Yeah.
But that's about it. Whereas this one, I felt like the Doctor, he was there to figure things out, but he was also, like, him in this episode works out exactly as it was set up. He has to be the delivery man, he has to get these tablets to Kai and Sondergaard in order to, make sure they figure out this whole metamorphosis, and then, then the Solonians can evolve, basically.
Now, I always wondered why they were called the Solonians, and it kind of, again, talk about vague historical reference. Solon, if I recall correctly, and I know I'm going to get this wrong, but was either an ancient Greek or an ancient Roman administrator known for their wisdom and basically like the Moses type, the lawgiver. So again, that could have been set up when they say, we've got the people who are going through this transition. They become the bugs, the caterpillars, as you will, and then somebody would simply speculate. It makes us wonder, what will they be like when they evolve? Are they just going to be normal people again, like Kai, with perhaps some enhanced abilities? But as it turns out, they are literally godlike at the end. That could have been set up a little bit better. But again, overall, this is one of those things we've sometimes said. We see where they were going, didn't quite achieve it in the execution of it, but again, not as bad as Walter Brennan in space, like you said.
Yeah. So, it's just a very interesting one. So, there
was an old TV series back in the 1960s called Get Smart, and one of their catchphrases was "Missed it by that much," and that's the way I'm feeling here. It's a good story. Today, if they had done this story, they could have executed it much better. First of all, of course, with the special effects.
Yeah.
But I got to say, the bugs were pretty good.
Yeah.
And in this episode, especially, and the fifth one where we were seeing more of them.
Yeah.
It reminded me of the Web Planet.
Yeah.
Where they actually had relatively interesting-looking human beings inside of bug costumes.
Yeah. Well, and for the most part, like, they're not too focused on. It's more of, the normal Solonians, and then you get the guards and everything, and the marshal and stuff. So they're there. You have your sort of your bug-eyed monster and stuff, but they're sort of more in the background, which I think works out. But yeah, even like the special effects, like maybe the only one is when they went into that cave, and is very clear, like, okay, this is clearly being green screen or blue screened in later, and you can see the outline, which there's nothing that can be done about that, and that's not their fault or anything. But then when you would get something like the breach in the hull, and you just see space out there, that worked. And then honestly, it did to an extent work with Kai and the special effects there. Obviously, yes, it's very clearly putting these strange colors on him while he's in this robe, and then moving him around the screen in a very strange way. But it I guess it was short enough that it worked. And honestly, I was getting some Ghost of Christmas Past vibes from him too. So maybe that's why I was all right with it, because it's like, oh, this looks familiar.
And again, from a directorial standpoint, if I had been given this script, one of the things I would have done is, again, rather than the Technicolor Dreamcoat there, like you said, at the end, just have him almost, just with the white hair or a different colored hair, so you do know that it's Kai, but basically have him in what he was dressed in before, just in, instead of being in burlap, he'd be dressed in silks and things like that. So that you could see it was simply an evolved version rather than this, enhanced thing that was happening there.
Yeah. So
again, that's just me.
Yeah. But of course, we know they have the budget of 2 ham sandwiches and a shoelace. So, but still, for those 2 ham sandwiches and a shoelace, it looked fairly good.
Yes.
So,
yes.
So let's see here. Well, we had Professor Sondergaard. That's it. Yeah. I just wrote down Professor, and I was like, well, I can't just say Professor, because there's also Professor Jaeger. So, which is already weird for me, because I watch another show where they have a Dr. Jaeger. So that was always just sort of stuck in the back of my mind whenever they said his name. So,
and again, that was a thread that I commented on at the time, because I don't remember them setting it up that Sondergaard had been working on the surface before all this started happening. So it makes you wonder, if he was exiled, then how did he build this lead-lined laboratory down there? Again, I may have missed that. They may have somehow set it up earlier than that, but I missed that. So
yeah,
culpa.
But he was a very interesting character as the sort of expert and stuff, and the sort of, I guess sort of the one cool guy among the sort of villains, which we already kind of had with Cotton and Stubbs. But it's like, yes, here's this guy from Earth, but he's trying to, understand them, and he's not doing these crazy experiments that could hurt them. He's trying to, learn. Honestly, he pretty much just reminds me of the Doctor, basically. Yeah. So,
and also I got just a faint vibe of what was the one where maybe it was the Ice Warriors, but it was something where they were trying to control the weather or something, and there were the old Scottish guys and one of them gets killed, but the other one was
yeah, that's the Ice Warriors.
That's
I think.
Yeah. So, but again, that kind of vibe where you got this one guy who's basically been exiled, or he's been kicked out, or he's left the community because he doesn't believe in what they're doing, and he's trying to help the natives, basically.
Yeah, because that was the whole thing, was the expert who was pretty much exiled out from there because the main guy didn't like the experts anymore. He was focusing on the computer. He went out there and I think it was just one guy out there, but he was taking care of him during this ice age, basically. Yeah. So yeah, it is very similar to that. And honestly, the Marshal, well, yes, he is very similar to our, overbearing, controlling guys. I felt like there was a progression to him more than some of our others. Like, because we've had some, like in Fury from the Deep with Robson, that's the first one that always comes to my mind, where, like, even though it kind of worked in that story, like, just from the get-go, this dude is angry. Just constantly angry at everything. Yeah. Even though it's like, we just started the episode, man. But here, while yes, he's already, power hungry and everything, there is a progression to his madness to where at the end it's like, oh, what exactly is he trying to do here? Because at first it's like, well, he's trying to, get this colony for Earth, and he spent, his life's work on this, and then he's suddenly told to abandon it, so he's just going to try to keep going, and as he slips more and more into madness, eventually this is a new planet Earth, and I will rule it from my, crazy sky base as the new emperor. And it's like, okay, you've lost it, but there was a progression to that,
the way you just said that, I keep thinking that's certainly a template for Palpatine, isn't it? He starts out as the seemingly harmless senator, ultimately building up to Chancellor, and then becomes, the great Sith Lord.
Yeah.
And again, and I don't know who the actor was there, but that's to his credit. He did a very good job.
Yeah.
Paul Whitson Jones.
Yeah. So.
Oh. Sondergaard ended up doing Star Wars.
Yeah. Interesting.
Return of the Jedi.
Okay. Well, that was interesting. So yeah, and I mean, and that's the thing, is that we have a bunch of these, characters. I will say, because, I brought up Fury from the Deep, the other one to bring up would be the Wheel in Space. Well, that was another, that's a sort of a better example of like, okay, this is not how you're supposed to write this. The guy who just didn't believe in anything, didn't believe in emergencies, and eventually he just like went comatose or something.
Yeah.
That was one of the dumbest things. I probably don't have to put in a coin on this one, but I'll do it anyway. So,
and by the way, I think, let me look.
That was definitely a Canadian coin.
Yeah.
So.
Oops, nope, that's the wrong one. Anyway, well.
This one.
That's the one. That's a John Adams quarter. No, it's a John Adams $1 coin.
Yeah.
That it's just a different color. It looks Canadian, but that's actually one of those failed $1 coins that we tried miserably a couple of years back.
Is there a purpose to coins anymore? Like, I was about to say with the exception of a vending machine, but they're getting more expensive anyway. So
yeah, there has been a movement recently about whether or not we should continue to use coins. Here in the United States, it actually costs more to make a penny than the penny is worth.
Yeah, the penny definitely we could ditch, and I don't think anyone would actually care.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, all the others, nickels, dimes, quarters, and stuff, like, I don't really use those.
Yeah.
So
that's why we have giant jars like this all over our house. I think there's at least 4 or 5 of these here.
Yeah. And honestly, I haven't added to this jar in like 10 years. So yeah, I just had this just on the floor, and I was like, ooh, this could be funny. So hopefully it is. We haven't gotten any feedback on the last episode, so we really hope that this joke is as funny as we think it is.
Has the last episode been posted yet, though?
No, not to Patreon or anything.
Right, so we will hear from you on that.
Yeah, and we will hope that this is as funny as we think it is. So, but yeah, so the whole thing with like the wheel in space, that was more of a bad version of our sort of overbearing leader, whereas others like Robson to an extent was pretty good, and then the first one being in the Ice Wars, and now all the way this trope that keeps continuing all the way to here.
Yeah. And again, I don't know if that's a function of the writer or a function of the actor, but again, whichever it was, it worked much better this time around than we've ever seen it before.
Yeah.
Other than the guy in the Auton story, the guy that had previously played Mavic Chen.
Oh yeah, that was a Cyberman story.
Cyberman.
But yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was the invasion. But yeah, that was also another good one.
Yeah.
So at this point we could probably do we could start ranking all the overbearing bosses in Doctor Who. We'll do that as like a tier list someday. So and I also did just think, because on the last Doctor Who stream that I did, I actually ranked all the seasons of modern Doctor Who and put them into different tiers, and I just realized that when we finish up a particular Doctor in Classic Who, we've been going through just quickly talking about all of their episodes. I say quickly, it kind of takes us 40 minutes sometimes to go through all of them, but maybe we could also do that when we get done with the third Doctor. Is we'll say what we think, and then we'll put them into specific tiers, and then that will really piss everybody off, but they'll keep watching. So,
yes, but that's not our intention. Seriously, we're just a couple of guys who say, "Hey, we're watching this for the first time. We've done no research on this. This is just literally a couple of guys sitting here watching this and having fun." So,
right, we never intend. I know it sometimes sounds like that, but that's just for the joke. But these are just very honest thoughts, and on this one, even though, yes, the fandom doesn't like this one, we watched it, we liked it. So, let's see. Well, we got the explanation of the tablets being the 4 seasons on Solos, which was interesting. So I guess now that now that everything's said, I guess it does make sense why the Time Lords would want the Doctor to be here, because it's not just saving this one random species, but allowing them to reach who they're supposed to be. This, I suppose, enlightened. I don't know. He just seemed a bit more powerful, but kind of this more enlightened species. So it would kind of make sense that the Time Lords would want that to continue.
Oh, I just thought of something. At the end there, instead of Kai disintegrating the Marshal, it would have been funny to literally shrink him down to turn him into a cockroach or something, and then have the Inspector just step on him and squash him.
Well, yeah. Well, I was thinking it might be interesting if Kai could just turn him into a bug and just let him suffer out his days like that.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, he just ended up killing him, which, all right. Which, I mean, the entire time we were just waiting, it's a shame the Doctor doesn't actively kill people, because he probably would have by now. You know what? I am curious. I wonder if the War Doctor would have done that, because that was his whole thing, was that he abandoned the term the Doctor and really went into war. So maybe he would have. I don't know. I'd have to listen to the War Doctor audios they did. So let's see here. Well, we had the investigator, which was not the master. We'll throw in another coin on that one anyway. Would have been perfect setup, but that would have completely changed the story, probably. So it works better that it was just a normal investigator and their crazy hats and stuff.
Yeah, speaking of those, a minor costuming thing. Again, their hats were, or helmets or whatever you want to call them, very reminiscent of like ancient Egypt. So I mean, I like and especially the fact that they were all in white and gold, whereas the overlords were all in black and silver. But just like again in the space pirates or whatever that was, the smugglers, I can't even remember what it was, where the woman's helmet that looked like her hair was just slightly too large. These guys had a big bump in the back, and if it had just been contoured to their heads, it wouldn't, to me, have been as visually jarring as going, wait a minute, why is it that big? And of course, the fact that later on the investigator took it off, and we could see that he doesn't have a big bulbous head like that. Because the only reason to have the shape like that is if your head looks like that, in my opinion. But again, that's just that's the director in me and the visual artist in me. When I put something on stage, if I see even the smallest little detail that's wrong, I'm going, we got to fix that, because even if nobody else in the audience sees it, I will see it, and I'm going to go, that doesn't fit. We got to fix that.
Yeah. So we had the whole kind of trial or investigation thing, which was interesting. And I did like, the investigator listening to all sides and everything. It just so happened there was a poorly timed, entrance by one of the mutants. So, and, he allowed the marshal to keep going with what he was doing. But I was sort of thinking, like, it'd be interesting to have just an actual trial episode. And I know that actually, like, I think that might be, like, an actual season with, like, the Sixth Doctor. I think it's called Trial of a Time Lord, but I know a lot of people have mentioned that before, but I don't know anything about it.
And we've seen, and I can't remember if it was in the overview of all the classic Doctors, or if there was actually an episode where, it may have been a Hartnell episode, where somebody was on trial. It was like Ian was on trial or something, and the Doctor had to act as his advocate. I don't remember that, but again, I'm getting flashbacks of a trial during one of the episodes.
Yeah, I think it was the Keys of Marinus, where they were going around to different places on this planet, and Ian was like accused of stealing or accused of killing someone, and so the Doctor had to step in basically as a lawyer. Yeah. But I kind of thought about that too. I don't remember the trial lasting too long though. But like in a case like this where you have the investigator and we're listening to both sides, I sort of flashed to the Star Trek episode Measure of a Man, where they're trying to figure out is Data property or is he a sentient life form and stuff. And it's a great episode. And then what I thought about was, have you ever heard of a channel called Legal Eagle? Mm-mm. It's basically a real lawyer, and he critiques like movies and TV shows and stuff. And it's all very interesting to see like what's accurate and what's not. So he'll do some videos like on Better Call Saul or Daredevil and stuff, and he'll be like, this is accurate, this isn't, this is all right, that's a bit more dramatic for television. I was like, you know what? I would love to see a Doctor Who, just an actual trial in Doctor Who. Now, I don't know how they would do that because, like, you can get away with that on Star Trek, a sort of military tribunal. On Doctor Who, it's supposed to be, going out and exploring and, finding these weird creatures or going back in time and stuff. So you'd really have to come up with an idea to do a trial in Doctor Who. But I'd love to see that someday.
Yeah. This is going to sound very strange, and I'm not even sure you're familiar with this story. But there is a wonderful American short story called The Devil and Daniel Webster. And it's about a man who makes a deal, if I recall correctly, makes a deal with the devil and then wants to get out of it. And he actually calls the greatest lawyer in America at that time, Daniel Webster, who is also a politician, to defend him in the trial. And the devil says, okay, but like I'm going to be the judge, and I'm going to call like the worst people in history to be the jury. And so it's a wonderful little legal battle, this, that, and the other. But anyway, there are plenty of trials throughout history that you could plunk the Doctor down in the middle of.
Yeah. So I don't know if that is the Sixth Doctor season, if it's anything like that. Although, I mean, from what I can tell, the entire season is like one story, and it's called Trial of a Time Lord. So obviously it's going to take us a while to get there. That's 3 doctors from now, and the next doctor is fairly long, but
I got to looking. I think our very first one together, the one where we did Unearthly Child, that was in 2018, and that was like late in 2018.
Yeah.
Like August or September, like that. So we've really only been doing this for 3 years, and we've already gotten through almost 9 seasons.
Yeah, pretty much.
So, I mean, we got time.
Yeah. I think that might be like season 16 or 18. I don't know. It depends on how long Tom Baker's run is, and it is...
I think somebody said he ran for like 7 years.
Yeah, it is a very, very long time. We're actually coming up on the end of season 9. I think we only have one more story, which will be another split into 2 episodes. And then after that, we're back around to the 3 doctors. So, which also means we'll be doing another modern reaction. So, probably the last modern reaction, though. Maybe. We'll have to see.
Well, I told you before, I would seriously like to see the very first episode with Eccleston to see how they restarted the whole thing.
Yeah.
Because wasn't the movie the last major thing, and that was what, 96?
Yeah.
So it was like a 9-year gap between Paul McGann and Christopher Eccleston.
Yeah.
So, and I just want to see how the new showrunners and the new writers and everybody spanned that 9-year gap. You know, what happened to the Doctor? And I want to know, did they bother to explain it, or just they say, oh, he's regenerated and here's the new one, and let's just pick up right where we left off?
Right. Because honestly, just because of how it works out, the first episode is almost, you could say, just a redo of the movie, because that was the whole thing with the movie. They were trying to reboot it, new audience. Maybe we could bring it over to America, even though we were keeping a British actor as the Doctor. And it's like, okay, but we have Sylvester McCoy, and then he gets shot and regenerates into the 8th Doctor, and then you go, and that just didn't work. And I think people have said it kind of worked in Britain, but it just didn't work in America. So then it's like, okay, so we had his first story, and then nothing. All right, Christopher Eccleston's first story. So basically we have to just try to redo that, but with another Doctor. So, yeah, maybe we might take a look at that one. So, let's see.
Anything else?
It was very daring to go through the refueling in order to escape there.
Yes, that seems kind of odd.
Yeah, so I guess that means the refueling... I'm not entirely sure how that... Maybe because I'm thinking of in terms of a car. You try to refuel a car. I don't think you can then go into the gas tank, get out through the engine like if you're Ant-Man or something. Although, I don't know. I guess I don't know the ins and outs of, how a car works.
But again, the cesium was not solid. It wasn't liquid. It might not even have been a gas. It may just have been some kind of, particle exchange. So, yes, before that happened, though, when, as Cotton said, as soon as it opens up, if we can get through there and get out of it before the cesium starts going through, we should be okay.
Yeah.
And they do manage to do that, so.
Right. And then we did have the whole thing of, I'm only a madman if I lose, which is interesting. So,
wow. Talk about predictive.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, honestly. I don't know if that counts as a historical reference or not, but it's been a year, so.
And he's still mad.
Yep. We'll put in 3 or 4 just in case, just to cover our bases on that one. I feel like we've immediately lost sight of what the coins were supposed to do. We're just sort of putting in coins when we need to reference something else, so... but it all works out, and hopefully it's funny, so... but it is also interesting, just that whole line, because the Doctor often calls himself a madman anyway, but I guess that's the thing, is that the Doctor never truly loses, so... and then, yeah, just sort of the last thing I wrote down is... the new Kai and his Technicolor Dreamcoat and everything. So, it was an interesting effect, an interesting idea. it would be interesting to see it, with sort of modern effects and everything. But it worked out, and it's sort of like how we said it worked to have the mutants sort of off screen. They weren't really the focus, and then you see them and it's like, okay, it's a pretty interesting suit design, but you don't see it too much to where it starts to fall apart. It probably works for him as well, where it's like, okay, well, that was a very strange effect that I didn't see coming, but he wasn't on screen very long with that effect, so it worked out. So
what's up next?
Up next, if I can find the thing. Up next, the Time Monster.
Ooh, that sounds interesting.
Yeah, so that will be how we round out season 9. So who knows? Maybe we'll go back to Unit. We haven't seen them in 4 episodes.
And I think somebody said that basically it was a way to save money. Is that the contract players weren't specifically necessary, since a lot of this isn't on Earth.
Yeah.
But it would seem to me that Unit does come back during Baker's time period.
Yes, I think so. And I remember they were in the 3 Doctors. Yeah. So we will get them back at some point. But yeah, I definitely heard that they basically only made contracts for John Pertwee and Katie Manning to be in all the episodes. Whereas last season they did have the Brigadier and Benton and Yates and probably Roger Delgado as well. Yeah. So that's why we had, to be fair, really good plots, but 5 of the exact same plot for the entire season.
Now,
but I like those 5 episodes.
Do we know at this point if Delgado has been in his accident? And that's because remember we basically learned that he would be killed in this car accident,
right?
And that's why he didn't. So I don't know if it's happened by this time, or if they were waiting to bring him back and then it happened later. So I don't know. So
I don't know when it happens. I think it is sometime during this run of the 3rd Doctor, and I could kind of see, especially with like the 3 Doctors, because the whole thing of that is bringing in Omega and everything. Maybe they were originally thinking that would be the Master. I could kind of see that, but I don't know. I'm not really sure when it happens, and I mean, I don't think it's gonna pop on screen or anything or really affect the story. Yeah. So I have no idea.
Nowadays, of course, at the end of an episode, even if it wasn't one he was in, it would say something like "dedicated to the memory of our good friend Roger Delgado."
Right. So, and it's entirely possible that will happen. So, I mean, either way, it will be sad when that happens, because he's really, really good as the Master.
He's brilliant.
So, and then I guess I don't know, because at some point, what episode was it? The Deadly Assassin, I think, with the 4th Doctor. I think that may be when the Master reappears, but he's
he's all gooey.
He's all gooey and stuff like that.
Goo.
Oh, right.
Not the same goo, just different goo.
Yeah, he
new goo.
He's gooish. So yeah,
Dr. Goo.
Yeah, exactly. That
that's it.
I was gonna make another reference, but I'm just gonna put in a coin and not do that instead. So, with all that being said, we're Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films, and we will see you guys next time. Take care. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video. There's a bunch of links on screen if you want to go click around to any of those. There's a playlist for all of our Doctor Who classic reactions, as well as another Doctor Who playlist of some variety that you can go click on. There's also a subscribe button and a Patreon button on screen, as well as other links in the description if you want to go check out any of those. See you guys later.